All right. Hello, world historians, and I'm hoping you're having a great day. I wanted to make this video so that you guys know how to grade the DBQ on peergrade. It is a little bit different because it's not like the SAQs and a clear-cut rubric of everything that you can have. We got, especially for this time, what I wanted us to grade, what I wanted you to achieve is a lot different because of it being a DBQ and not an SAQ. So let's take a look. All right, so you go into peergrade and, oops, your screen looks different than mine. But when you pull up DBQ_1, remember this is the directions. This is what you should be grading. And what you should have submitted is one body paragraph that has these 3 points. And so one thing you're going to want to do is open up this PDF and have this with you. I think there's a way to do it in your, what do I call it? Your grading element anyways. But if not, just make sure you have that before you kind of get started so that you can reference the different documents, because you might not have written yours on the same documents, and therefore you might need to reference them, and that's, you know, key. So let's just go back to grading one of the assignments. All right, so one thing to look at, there's 2 sections of what you're grading. The first section is to support an argument or response to the prompt using 2 to 3 documents and at least 1 additional piece of specific historical evidence, evidence that is not found in the documents. Oh, I need to adjust that rubric. Sorry about that. And then the second section is for at least 1 document. Explain how or why the document's point of view, purpose, historical situation, or audience is relevant to an argument. So that's directly from those directions that we saw over here, right from here. You know, the first 2 bullet points is what we have in section 1, because it's all about evidence and the argument. And then for section 2 is about the sourcing, about the happy. So with question 1, it asks, did your classmate have an argument relevant to the prompt? So you're going to copy and paste the argument. Might be the topic sentence, doesn't have to be, it might not be, and then explain why or why they didn't get the point. So let's take a look at the student's response here. Now, they got 2 paragraphs. Notice no indentions, which I've been seeing a lot of y'all not doing that. But you could definitely tell that there are 2 paragraphs here. So you need to read both paragraphs. What I'm going to say with those that tried to do a whole DBQ or submitted their whole DBQ essay is you just grade the first paragraph. Unless it's the intro paragraph. And it should be obvious. Like, let's look at this one. Prior to the time period, 1200 AD, that right there is verbiage of contextualization, been to people, metalworking, yeah. This is contextualization, probably to their thesis statement. So you guys did not need to do an intro. The way that, with this time period and things like that, I didn't want you necessarily to contextualize what happened before that would cause this stuff to happen, because that's beyond our time period. You usually don't have DBQs within this time period, but this is a new year, 2020, who knows? However, I don't think they will, and that's why I didn't have you do an intro. We're going to work on intro next week. So this is what we're going to be reading. This is the first paragraph. This is their body paragraph. So again, if they have 2 paragraphs, this one might be an intro. It might not, but take a look. And if it's obviously contextualization to a thesis, they didn't mention any documents, read the second paragraph. Very important, okay? Don't just go, oh, the first paragraph didn't have any documents. They got no. Then your grade is now half bad. You're only going to get a 50% because you were, you know, all wrong on their particular page, on their response, sorry. So start to read this to find if they have an argument. The African people's skill in metalworking was one of their greatest achievements. So this here, I would say, is the argument. So I'm going to copy it. We're going to paste it. Now, what you can do to go above and beyond to make it real easy for me to see this is quote that that's their wording. And then we need to say yes or no. Is this a good enough argument? So we got the African skill in metalworking was one of the greatest achievements. So you have the achievement here. That's what you were asked to do. And it even shows the extent. So that's perfect. 100% yes. And now we can explain. So this student shows the sub-Saharan regions achievement and even argued the extent. Oops, forgot to tell us what it is as metalworking and even argued the extent. Oops. As you guys know, Ms. Lucas is horrible at spelling. All right, so that one's done. Let's go on to question 2. Did your classmate accurately use content from one of the 5 documents to address the topic of the prompt? Not just merely quote. Comment which document number and explain why or why not they earned this point. So let's keep on reading. This skill was spread by the Bantu people as they migrated across Africa, and the African societies mastered it, making tools of wondrous objects. Document 3 by a Hausa artisan describes the process of making these beautiful and wonderful figurines from metal, molten metal. Being able to make decorations with metalworking shows how far they have advanced in metalworking. The African people may have made the tools they need, so they can now focus on wants rather than needs. However, the same artist is describing his own work. Therefore, all right, so we're going into sourcing a little bit there. So let me just go to the PDF. Look at document 3. And just to make sure, in the name of compassionate and merciful, this account shows the regular figures are made. This work is one to cause wonder. Now this kind of work. All right, so this student definitely is using document 3. They did it correctly because so document 3, this is where you can quote the document. I would even say, you know what, if you're quoting the document, we just need this here, you know, student said document showing wait a minute, where did they say? Describes the process. Document, describe process of making things out of metal. And as you see in that document, you know, that quote from the document, you know, shows that particular piece. So that's why they earned this point. Here, document 3 says, and the student said document. So I got to type this a couple of different ways. So with the student in document 3, the student said it describes the process of making things out of metal. And as we see in the document next to set aside, you know, you see that it is clearly It was clearly directions. So boom, they are mentioning something that's in the document. Question 3, did your classmate accurately use content of another one of the 4 remaining documents to address the topic of the prompt, not just merely quote? So now we need to see if there is a second document utilized. All right, nonetheless, document 5 also shows the intricacy and detail that African metal workers put into their craft, except the metal workers are Nigerian. Even in another part of Africa, they are capable of creating advanced decorations and are not limited to making tools. They achieved great things by making works of art, show their advancement in their society and continent. Not only that, but the African societies were much more advanced in metalworking than other societies in the world of that time. They are achieving what other societies would not have achieved for centuries. So yes, they're utilizing document 5. And document 5, as you might recall, is the image. I got you a nice color for this, which probably won't have usually. So you got the bronze head staff of the shape of a coiled snake. With document 5, I wanted to see one other thing. Yep. So the student uses this document by stating its details of metal working. As simple as that. Here, you're essentially just identifying which document and using the context towards it, the content of it, not context, excuse me, the content of that document as evidence. So that simple piece, hopefully our students are doing that. Your peers are doing that. All right, let's move on to question 4. Did your classmate accurately identify one additional piece of specific historical evidence beyond that found in the documents? I have a feeling that this one's going to be hard to find, and this is why I listed this out as you need to identify that evidence beyond the document, describe it, and explain it. Because the explain part is to explain the evidence oh shoot, I need to adjust that as well. I always find these when I go back through. Did your classmate accurately, oh no, describe, I'm looking at the wrong one, I apologize. Did your classmate accurately explain the evidence found in the documents relevant to an argument about the prompt? So that's the key thing with the explain part. That's where they connect it back to the argument. And here, I want to say right in the very beginning, is where they identify evidence beyond the documents. So skill, that's the only thing that I am not liking about using this as evidence beyond, because to just say the skill, it's kind of generic. I know you just mentioned it in your argument. So let's do it like this. Like I said, this is going to be one of the hard ones. So did they identify, because I don't necessarily want you to be redundant, I'm going to say no. This is where if I had you guys in, I would have you chime in, which I know you all would say yes, because you always want to give everybody the points. But being more precise as possible is essential. This skill. Here, we'll say yes. This skill is what the student says. Which is identified in the argument as metal working. And that's all you have to say. Just I show what they, yes, that they identified, or no. If they didn't identify anything, you could even put this the same way. I could say, this could go essentially either way. No, they didn't, because they said this skill, which you can see where they're kind of putting it towards, but it's identified in the argument. You already got a point for the argument. You can't double dip. Or yes, and say this. And let me be the judge in that instance. And I'm going to put a no because you're not being precise. Did your classmate accurately, oh gosh, I keep going backwards. How does that happen? Sorry, guys. Did your classmate accurately describe the evidence used behind the document? Yeah, they're describing that this is, the description is how it's spread. So yes. Oops. The student described, boom, boom, boom. And I made that little comment. This is where you might fact check. Don't be afraid to Google. Is this true? Is this relevant? Did your classmate accurately explain the evidence beyond that found in the documents relevant to the argument? And yes, we'll say yes on this one too. And that is, because this goes right back here. This shows how it is greatest achievement. And there we go with not spelling achievement right again. All right, so we got our grading done for the first section. Now let's go into the second section. For at least one document, explain how or why the document's point of view, purpose, historical situation, or audience is relevant to an argument. All right, so here we saw that they were doing sourcing. Right here. However, the hostile artisan is describing his own work and therefore more biased to spread good words about his work. This lessens the credibility of the document. All right, this is the tricky part. All right, so did your classmate identify at least one document's point of view, purpose, historical situation, or audience? So here, yes, they identified, oops, point of view. Point of view. So you need to indicate which document number. So document 3 identified point of view. Simple as that. Now, is it right or wrong is as we get to the describe and explain. For that same document mentioned above, did your classmate describe the document's point of view, historical situation, or relevance to the argument? Yes. And again, this is where you can quote your peers. This is what you're going to be doing a lot about. The student described all right. And then the last one here, for that same document mentioned above, did your classmate explain how or why the document's point of view, historical situation, or audience is relevant to the argument? I'm going to place a no for this one. Came very close. The problem is that word biased. What's the bias? You know, don't just, it's almost like saying a pronoun in all reality. So what I'm going to do is quote the student here. So the student said, so he's trying to say that this lessens the credibility of document 3. So then why did you use document 3? How does that support your argument? Now you can say, hey, well, we see that he's, of course, this, you know, the artist is going to glorify his work. Let's look back at document 3 here. Description of wax process used in making bronze sculptures in the Benin Hassa artisan in the 15th century. You know, you see him praising his work, how great it is. You know, like what the student could have done to get the sourcing point is not, again, like not use bias. What is the bias? You know, they are proud of their work, which could lessen the credibility, but you see that this is showing you the process of what the work is. Is it the greatest? Maybe, you know, everything is in the point of view of the person. And you do, you know, you're mentioning that this is someone, you know, talking about their own piece. So you don't want to necessarily lessen your argument. It's almost like this just needs to be worded differently. This is the key word that I don't want you guys to use. Readers don't want to see this. What is the bias? You did not identify that. And how is that helping your argument? And this one here is lessening the credibility of the argument. So almost, very close. How many documents did your classmate attempt to source? This is kind of the bonus points of this assignment here, is those that tried to do 2 or more. And this is, and again, see, attempt to source. So if they only have sourced 1, then boom, they get the average credit for this. If they did 2 or more, then boom. If they didn't try to source anything, of course, you're going to get a 0. And then lastly, mechanics and structure. Did your classmate indent the paragraph? No. And this is huge. As you see, the student did a really great job on the submission, even went above and beyond, which I kind of don't like, but hey, you know, did an intro. You got to indent the paragraphs. We got to know when there's multiple paragraphs, an easy way to start each paragraph, because that helps to see your organization, to help you get that complexity point, because it's all about the whole picture when you look at that 10th point. I know it's not in this, but that's basic mechanics and structuring of essays, is to indent your paragraph. So like I said, they did a really great job. And you see some things that you might run into. And this is how you're graded. So each of these elements here is how you're going to get your score for this DBQ. As you see, you got some things that need to be correct. And then some of the things is just attempting and having the structure of your argument there and of the evidence. And that's what I'm grading you with this first body paragraph. What was some other things I was going to say about what I want you to keep in mind with your writings and your gradings for that matter. All right, I can't think of one thing, but one thing I wanted to do is kind of show you with that evidence beyond the document, you know, to fact check. So I put in here about how long was the Bantu migration, just so you see that, you know, started in BCE and ended before 1500. So it's within our time period, which is 1200 to 1450, perfectly. So I'm going to adjust my grading here a bit with that evidence beyond. That's the other document. So we had a no. So yes, I'm going to put the student identified Bantu migration. Boom. For description, the student said the skill was spread. The skill identified in argument. Which again, not happy about this. It's almost like, yeah, do you really want us to say, so metal working, you know, iron tools is what's been spread by the Bantu people. So this is where I'm going to put my note. But they almost did. The student said da-da-da, which almost gets them the point. You guys talk about this all the time. All right, and then lastly is yours explain, and yeah, this is the key piece that didn't change anything whatsoever. So this is how you're graded. This is how you want to send your grade. Some people have already did some grading here, it looks like. I always like looking at this. I know some of you are like, oh, I didn't write as much, or oh, I wrote too much. Sometimes almost more is better, because what I do when I look at 2 grades, I look at, you know, when I'm, you know, giving you your final grade, I look at what your peers said. Sometimes if they say yes and I still say no, but they argued well, I don't take a point away from them. I let them say yes. So your grade's boosted a little bit. Even though I say no, you didn't get the point, and, you know, I'm a professional reader for, you know, and your teacher, that student did a great job at saying why you are. Now, usually we'll give a comment, go, well, yes, you are very true, but this is the key thing that's missing, bloom. You know, so that they understand where they did a good argument for you, but they're technically wrong. So I'm gonna submit the feedback towards this person, and they're all set. What was something else I was gonna show you guys? But, you know, that's how I am grading our one body paragraph. Again, a couple reminders to recap. If the student wrote multiple paragraphs, you're going to grade the first paragraph, unless it's obviously the intro paragraph. You know, grade the first paragraph that mentions the documents and go through those steps. Boom, boom, boom. As you see, there's no particular rubric as to what is right, what is wrong. I think I'm going to make another video that I'll post on Monday that goes through the 5 documents, showing you what would be acceptable pieces of, you know, how to use those documents properly to make sure everyone does understand those documents. So if you, you know, I don't necessarily want you guys to work over the weekend. I know some of you, you know, depending on your schedules, need to work over the weekend, and that's perfectly fine. And that's why I wanted to post this video out as soon as possible, so those that are going to peer grade, you know, have the confidence in peer grading properly. If you don't understand the 5 documents, or you're not sure, then don't peer grade until Monday. And I will post that video on Monday, maybe even Sunday night. And because I'll be working on it probably later today, or maybe even on Saturday, since I don't have my daughter Friday and Saturday this week. I usually do a lot more schoolwork. So keep working hard. You know, a couple added little things, you know, AP, you know, College Board, as, you know, been doing those YouTube series, going over Unit 8 and whatnot. If you watch that, 8.4 video, you know, goes over the FRQ of 8.1 to 8.4 that we did. They are long, and like I've mentioned about them before, one of the guys is, I think, kind of interesting. The other one, not so much. So, but a lot of good stuff, a lot of things like what I would normally be teaching you guys as we would learn on with the information. The big reason why they're putting that information out there is because they know that, you know, this is a stressful time for teachers and students and parents. And essentially, even though our content is only from units 1 through 6, as we're reviewing these next 5 weeks now, you are still expected to know about all the other things beyond unit 6, 7, 8, 9. And we went over the 2 big ones that you guys need for your U.S. government, or sorry, U.S. history next year. Have it be you're at the honors level or at the AP level. You're going to need to know that information about unit 7 and about unit 8. And we've covered up the key pieces in there between the FRQ y'all did and the multiple choice questions, in all honesty. So keep on trucking, keep on doing good. Remember, contact me if you have any issues. EDSB is your first source. If it's an immediate situation, like you didn't submit something that you should have, or had some problems with something, then you can text message me. I usually don't answer my text messages after school unless I see that it is an important situation. So you know, I'm trying to be valuable of y'all's time and be considerate and whatnot of my time too. Oh, I miss you guys and can't wait for our next Zoom meeting. And you have an excellent weekend or week. Stay safe.